Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. Now, we just finished a Black Ethiopian Opal, and I want to have a look at this. It doesn't look like much from the outside, but if I give it a flip, this was part of the package that Barbara sent over. So this is a large Ethiopian chocolate opal. You can see it's got this body tone. When we talk about body tones, in Australian we rarely get something like this, but you can see it's just this dark brown, chocolatey kind of, a little bit orange tinged. But it's hard to tell because there are some flashes, a lot of flashes of red. Red is actually a fairly common color when you see it in this kind of thing. What you're actually going to be surprised to find is any kind of blues. So the red and the greens do flash through pretty commonly. It's a little bit different to Aussie Opal where we're always hunting the red. Here you're going to always get the red pretty much. And you can see it comes up in these little nodules. Not really a seam opal, very volcanic-y. You can tell from all the dirt it's very ashen, so it's very ashy, but pretty firm, pretty hard. Now today I'm not going to work this individual piece, I'm going to work a much smaller little boy just here. Very flashy still, maybe a little bit more color than the big one, but I'm going to sacrifice this little one in the name of science. I'm going to do some things that I wouldn't recommend for this type of opal, and we'll see if it all goes wrong. Like I mentioned, with this ashy, really hard volcanic kind of crust, if you chuck this in water, and this is hydrophane, this soaks up the water much differently to this one soaking up the water, and the expansion of the stone can cause a lot of fracturing. Now this one, if you have a look, is already really fractured. That could literally just be from the mining process or from the hydrating it and getting it out of its nice, well, dehydrating it, getting it out of its nice little earthy tomb that it was in, and I'm just trying to pick some off, but it's not coming off overly easily. What I would normally recommend is, while it's dry, try to remove as much of this outer casing of crust as you can, just to at least get to the bare opal. And if you do have cracks like this, split them before working, because they're just always going to split anyway, or if you see them pop up while you're working away, they were probably there in the first place, and just crack them. Pulitzer Opal's got a really good video on it, and it's actually incredibly satisfying, strangely enough, to hear the opal just splitting. So we'll do something like that at one point. But for now, we're just going to work on this little guy. So beautiful red, beautiful green, it's pretty common colors for this material. There is a little bit of a crust, so this is like a little marble-sized piece. And the process, I'm just going to pretend it's an Aussie Opal. So I'm going to go straight into water, see what happens. And we'll start off with the super strong grits, and then we'll move our way to the lighter grits. And the only difference I'm going to do on this stone compared to what I would with a standard Aussie is with the Nova points. We're going to do the full Nova attack, so 280, 600. We'll then go with the 1200, 3000, and instead of going to cerium oxide or something after that, I'm going to see what kind of finish I can get going from the 3000 to the 14, and then finishing off with the 50,000 Nova. So this full range, it's a little bit more than usual. Normally you just use that 4-pack in a metal oxide or a diamond paste, but I'm going to chuck in these extra 2 and try to get a half decent shine on this material here. Hopefully that flash translates to the back, but there's only one way to find out, so let's get going. One thing to quickly show before the carving starts, just testing for hydrophane opals. You just want to dip your finger in the water and then just wipe all of that water off, and you should be able to let go of the stone and have it stick to your finger, as long as the stone's small enough, of course. You'll really feel it suck on. It's an unusual feeling. You don't get that in Australian opal, but you do get it with some of the Ethiopian. And now I'm just going to chuck it in the water and just let it soak for a little bit. Again, this is not what I advise to do. Definitely all of that crust should be removed first. Right now the stone is taking on water, and if you have a look in the bottom edge, I'll point to it now, there's little bubbles coming out. Now the little bubbles isn't the opal itself fizzing, it's that crust on the outside. The opal itself, even though it's a little porous, it's not like it's a sandstone or anything. It's not going to fizz or hiss or anything like that. That is really just that ashy crust on the outside, which does have some soft spots if you can see any of those green softer patches. But you'll see in a minute how solid that stuff is. After a little while, I'm checking it again, having a look. It doesn't do that whole body tone color changing, and yes, I do spin it around because it's like a disco ball for some reason. You do that kind of thing. And then here I'll get the heavy burrs, and you can see it's not, I thought it would carve a lot quicker than this, but it really is a hard a really hard earth on these nodules, on the outer crust of the nodules. I don't know what the surrounding earth is like. It's meant to be an old volcanic area, so there's a lot of volcanic material, but this stuff it's really hard. I can't really state how hard it is. Definitely not muddy. Hello there, I've fixed some camera settings, and you can see the chocolate opal much better now. I'm glad I picked up that it was looking a little bit dark. I took off a lot of the back. You can see that it's just starting to flash through now. I wouldn't want to go the coarse sintered diamond any further. But we're actually going to stop this one here, because even though it looks pretty good, there are some problems, which is kind of what I wanted to demonstrate anyway with this little piece. So you can see behind here, there's a few little chips, not too bad, like even Aussie opal kind of chips. It's a little bit brittle here and there. This one, I think those were mostly around the edges, nothing too big. A bit of a chunk came off the front edge. Just there, you can see where that's come off. But if I pull this up out of the water and we have a bit of a closer look, it's going to be hard. We're really going to need to rely on the flash of colour to show us where these cracks are, but I do see a couple spots where it is cracking. Now I can't be 100% sure that these cracks are because the opal itself reacted poorly to the water while the crust was still left on. Like I said at the start, you want to remove that crust first before chucking it in the water. But you can see here there's it's really hard to get on camera. I'll see if I can get the right angle for it. Alright, with all these camera settings, can you see that faint line just coming through here? I can see that is a little fracture. It comes right down and then down through the face here. It's through a fairly meaty section, and I feel like I would have noticed that one if it was there prior to carving it up a little bit. There's also another one that stems from this one here and comes up through the stone. Now I'll just see if I can pop a couple of these, because yeah, there you go. Really easy. Really easy. That's not even the... oh no, that's the one that was stemming from the bottom here that I was talking about. So it's really easy to get that crack. If we just have a look inside, since we're cracking it open anyway. Yeah, the colour does go pretty much all through the stone. There is actually a little bit of blue-purple in this one, not just the green and red. Which makes it a pretty interesting piece, but it is a bit of a sacrificial piece. I did choose it as the worst of the bunch, though I did think that it was going to shatter a lot more than this because I left that crust on. And let me tell you, that crust, grinding through it, was incredible. It's so hard. There's a couple of muddy, softer spots in it, but most of the time it's incredibly hard. And look at the colour, it's really cool. I thought there might be more of a honeycomb-ish pattern here because of it's a bit stripy in this direction. You can see that there's all these little pockets, but then they come out with these fingers. And Pulitzer showed this off really well in one video that he did a while back, which is really helpful when you're trying to hunt for honeycomb opal. But sometimes it does dance a little bit more pinfire-ish, and you can see that the fingers going this way kind of, sometimes you can see that there's some just opposing it going the other way. Really bright material. Even in the chocolate body tone, you can still get these huge bright flashes of colour. But yeah, as we've shown today, a little brittle. A little brittle. Now unfortunately for this stone, or for these pieces of this stone, this is not the end of the road. What we're going to do now is we are going to take this further, and I'm going to put this through all sorts of torture. So a lot of the things that I don't recommend, a lot of the metal oxide polishing, all of that kind of stuff, I need to show. Sometimes in science, you just want to show off the things that don't work just to have them on record. So I'm going to show off a whole bunch of things, ways not to dry it. Really, I'm just going to torture these poor little stones, but there are plenty of other ones that I'll show how to do the correct thing. Things that I've found that work and that a lot of other people are trying and that they're finding work. And yeah, hopefully we'll be able to show what does and does not work, because it's just important to show what doesn't work than what does work. Otherwise it's just a lot of people saying things, and half the time they haven't actually really tested it. Whereas I'm willing to chuck a few stones on the line and test them out. So sorry little stone or fragments of stone, these are all going to get tested further and they're not going to have a great time. But if you're interested in that kind of thing, hang around, and there are plenty of things to come up, including drying. Even some stones that are typically not dried, I'm going to actually try drying them We'll try a few little treatments and stuff, but a lot of those have already been shown online. I'm going to go for a bit more of the creative options that have seemed to work a lot of the time. But I'll be back and we'll see how we go. I can guarantee a few more failures ahead. Maybe intentional, maybe not. Only one way to find out, and that's to continue on. So I'll see you in the next one, guys.